We are delighted to have a chance to have Franca Sozzani back on this stage in some way after that memorable evening in which she spoke about moving from Vogue Italia to vogue.it. And it was a wonderful evening. And we also have the fortune of having Grazia d'Annunzio, who was one of her closest collaborators, here with us tonight. And as she did the Q&A with Franca at that time, she's going to be doing the Q&A with Francesco Carrozzini at the end of the screening. Before calling Francesco to the stage and introduce him to you before the screening, I just saw that the Consul General of Italy in New York is here with us. You don't want to say something now? Dopo? No. And I know that he would also like to say something about Franca Sozzani and the importance that she had in shaping fashion culture, not only Italian fashion culture, but fashion culture in general. So without further ado, I would like to ask you to welcome very warmly Francesco Carrozzini. Spotlight. Thank you, Francesco. I know that directors normally don't like to talk about their films before the film is shown, but maybe just two things you want to say, or one thing you want to say.
All I want to say is that this film, you know, of course now has a completely different meaning than when I started making it. And it was really made with the heart. And it's, you know, it kind of changes and as I go. And you know, it becomes now, you know, in the beginning it was a way to spend time with my mother, and now it's a movie that I think of as a way to make my kids one day get to know her. So it's a really, really intimate and personal film, and you know, I really hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Please enjoy the screening, and we'll see you after it, immediately after, for the Q&A with Francesco Carrozzini and Grazia d'Annunzio. Thank you. Before we start with the conversation between Francesco Carrozzini and Grazia d'Annunzio, I would like to invite the Consul General of Italy, Minister Francesco Genuardi, to come to the stage, and also Viviana del Bianco, because she has something to give to Francesco, and Francesco also on the stage, please. Ministro.
Grazie Stefano. The film is amazing. I think it's a film full of very moving, full of poetry, full of intensity, and we felt at home because there's so much New York in it that we really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the floor, Stefano, because it gives me the opportunity through this film to say on behalf of the Italian institutions how much Italy owes to fashion, in terms of creativity, in terms of industrial creativity, manufacturing, of economic growth, of exports, of a new language that interprets so well the country. And in the kingdom of Italian fashion, Franca Sozzani was really the queen. I think that she's an amazing woman. She reached the highest level possible of refinement, sophistication, and culture. And she did that as very few but important Italians are capable to do, being a woman of tradition and innovation. I think that she was capable of breaking the rules because she has so much tradition, also so much culture inside her, and that's Italy. I think that in this movie it comes out very clearly how much she's a woman of Franca Sozzani, of passion, of dreams, and of lightness. And I think that these three are the main ingredients of I'm happy to say that here in New York, of the Italian soft power. Thank you, Francesco Carrozzini, because you have portrayed the best imaginable ambassador of the Italian soft power. Grazie, we're very proud of Franca Sozzani.
Thank you, Consul General. Stay on the stage while Viviana gives the award from Firenze.
Questa sera è una sera molto speciale anche per N.I.C.E, New Italian Cinema Events, ma in particolare anche per me stessa, avendo lavorato con Franca Sozzani.
tonight is a very special evening, not only for N.I.C.E, New Italian Cinema Events, but also personally for Viviana, who for many years worked with Franca.
N.I.C.E ha deciso di dare una targa speciale a Francesco per il documentario, come ha raccontato la vita di Franca Sozzani.
And N.I.C.E decided to award Francesco with a special mention for the documentary he made for how he told the story of the life of Franca.
È un premio speciale anche del pubblico di N.I.C.E che dalla Russia fino all'America, come ha applaudito il tuo documentario, e quindi è un premio molto speciale.
And it's also an award from the audience that recognized how special this documentary was from Russia to the United States.
È il premio Città di Firenze, che consegno con grande gioia a Francesco Carrozzini.
And the City of Florence Award as well, that I give with great joy to Francesco Carrozzini.
La targa è molto piccola perché ha girato tutto il mondo.
And along those lines, I should mention that the film has already been seen in 42 festivals, correct, Francesco? And it's a runner-up for the Davide Donatello, that is the equivalent of the Academy Award for Best Documentary this year. And we are all with you and wish you all the best for that. And we should also mention that the film is available on Netflix. And so if you liked it, you should invite your friends to see it. But tonight you have a very, very special occasion, because after the film we have a chance to talk with Francesco. So Francesco, you stay on the stage. We go down. Please welcome Grazia DAnnunzio. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Grazia DAnnunzio, and I work for Italian Work. I've been working with Franca Sozzani since 1980. And so I'm extremely moved and honored and happy to be here tonight to remember a wonderful woman who also was my mentor, and also celebrate the great artwork that Francesco, who I met when he was in his mother's womb, so many years ago. So what Francesco did, it was extremely remarkable. And to keep the legacy alive, this is something that I think is what you want to do, and what we are with you in that, right, Francesco?
Yeah, I started making this film because my father was dying, as I say in the beginning of the film,
Yes.
and I would have never known that this was going to be the bridge between the death of both my parents. So this film is prophetic, it's just, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard really to describe how important this film is for me. It started now my career as a filmmaker. It makes me, it made me come to terms with who my mother was, because of course there's always like conflict with our parents, no matter who they are. So the reasons why this film is important are, countless, really.
How long did it take to make it? When did you start? You started when your mom was absolutely fine.
Very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It was this, or at least that's what we thought.
Mm-hmm.
As cancer, unfortunately, something that grows slowly, and if you don't get checked, sometimes it's too late. So one of the things that we're trying to work on with the foundation that I'm going to start is really cancer prevention. Not only, of course, breast cancer prevention, which is not her type and is already, very explored, but just really, we all don't want to go to the doctor. We all think the doctor will tell us something is wrong with us, but it's better if he does, because sometimes, again, it's too late. Anyway, the film started in 2010 in Central Park.
During a long snowstorm, as we can see.
Yeah, it was one of the snowstorms, and my mom got stuck at the airport for a while. And when she came to New York, I decided, my father was going to die a month later, that I wanted to start spending time with her in a different way. And my mother really never had time. She made time for the important things, but never had time to just sit down and talk to me. And so I used the camera as the device to pin her down, which wasn't really a great idea, because she said, I hope you'll never make a film about me. And then in 2013, we started editing. And in 2014, I showed her a cut. And she told me that it was the most mediocre thing she's ever seen in her life.
I have no doubt about it.
And so
She was really tough.
So I restarted. I found new producers. I was moving to Los Angeles at the time, and a very dear friend, Amy Berg, who's a very well-known documentarian, helped me and surrounded me with the right people, and we restarted retelling the entire story. I didn't want to be in the film in the beginning, and the whole point of this film is, me telling our story and, her story, but seen through my eyes. So that's how it all changed, and then we finished it in 2015. In 2016, it went to Venice. And now finally it's on Netflix, and we're doing screenings and Q&As just to bring it to as much audience as possible.
The movie was screened at the Venice Film Festival last year, and of course it had a different ending.
Yeah.
That you changed.
Yeah, so documentaries are supposed to, exactly document what happens and as truthfully as possible. And even though the film was finished when we presented it in Venice, the real audience was going to come now, because with Netflix now, hundreds and hundreds of people can see it, hopefully thousands. So I didn't feel good about just putting out a movie as it was. I just changed the ending. So from basically when, Marina Abramovic says people like this work until they die, which was in the movie already, and we thought was cool because, sure, she's going to work until they die, but, we didn't know she was going to be a prophet. So
Franca died 3 months later. She died in December.
Yeah. So we decided to say, let's tell the real story, which is, that we did sit in the audience together, we watched this film, and then life does whatever.
Franca often speaks, often says to you in the movie, in the documentary, about the desire of leaving a mark. So what was the most important or significant contribution that she left?
I think anyone who sees this film, regardless of the art or the endeavor that they take up on their life, I think she makes them a little bit more courageous. She makes them daring. She makes them risk, and she makes them a bit restless, in a way. And I think that's what she kind of left me. She left me, a lot of will and willpower to continue doing what I love to do.
Franca, believe me, was not an easy person. Not an easy person to work with, and I think not an easy mother to deal with. And in the movie, you can see how often she looks either bored or in a hurry or slightly uneasy to answer to your questions. Was she reserved? Was she shy, or both?
I think she was a little bit of both. She was very shy, and often shy people become either unpleasant or aggressive. And she was a little bit of both, depending on what was the occasion. But with me, I knew she was very tough, and she never really was. Anything I did was never enough. And when I decided to drop out of college, one exam before my thesis in philosophy, she said, "You dropped this. You dropped the ball here. You're always going to be a dropout." And fortunately, it wasn't really after. But she was very tough, and I think parents often have to be a little bit tough with you.
Yeah, she was also tough with herself.
Yeah, very.
On a personal point of view, and from a long working experience with her, I never seen someone who questioned herself so much as Franca, who worked so much and so intensively as Franca. So, but apart from that, was it difficult to work in this project, on this project with your mother?
Yeah, again, she didn't want me to make the film in the beginning.
That is quite
halfway through,
obvious.
she didn't want me to put it out. And in the end, I think the magic of what happened is she understood that I was doing it, 50% because I loved her and 50% for myself. And that the 50% for myself, because she loved me so much, was also, for her okay. And she accepted to do it, which was You know, it was not a formal, but she really said, okay, now let's just do this film.
What did you discover of your mother that you never imagined?
Well, I thought she was perfect, and as an Italian man, with no siblings, I had the impression that my mother had to be a perfect human being, and parents are just human beings, and unfortunately, at times make mistakes, like we all do. And I decided to come to terms with this, and with the fact that she wasn't there, maybe, as she says, to bring me to take me to the park. But then, I remember when I did my first film and I presented in Krakow at the film festival, I'm about to sit in the audience, and all of a sudden my mother showed up behind me. And I knew she was really busy, but she did it for 2 hours and literally flew right back. And those are the things that stay with me today, really.
Which was the most significant moment in making this documentary?
I think the moments when something turns out to be good in the end is the defeat. So I think you always learn best from losing or from feeling defeated. And there was a moment in the very beginning where we sent the film to Sundance and they turned it down. We sent the film to Berlin and they turned it down. And at one point, the producers wanted to send it to Cannes. I'm like, I can't take it to turn it down, And then they didn't send it to Cannes, but they sent it to Venice, and Venice accepted it. I let them send it because at one point I didn't really want this film to come out, and it ended up being a big success. So
good. Franca, as you learn watching this documentary, was a single mother who raised by herself Francesco. And Francesco was by far the most important person in her life. Franca, for me, was always a kind of lioness mother, meaning that she was protective, but at the same time, she let you go and make your mistake and do your own life. Have your own life. But apart from that, say that, Franca was not a traditional mother, especially when you were a young kid. Franca, for instance, missed, and she told in the movie that she missed your 5th grade graduation because she messed up with the dates. And of course, she was at the office. She was not playing bridge with some friends. She was working really hard. So back then, how did you react about this and other missing appointments?
There are times where I hated her. There are times where I try to understand and she's trying to explain it to me. In the end, I think every relationship and every story has to have a balance. And, you look at the balance. Unfortunately, I had to look at the balance too early. But the balance is really just very, very positive because, I am very ambitious. And she was a woman who in the early 1980s was a single mother.
Yes.
So for a woman in Italy in the early 80s, it wasn't the 50s or the 30s, but still, it wasn't really cool. And I just go through her thinking process and what she would have, what else she would have done. She was ambitious. She loved me very much, and she wanted to do what she wanted to do.
Yes, and also don't forget that Franca belongs to a very bourgeois family. So having a divorce, she was not even married to your dad.
Her father didn't talk to her for a while.
The father left her when Francesco was very young. So it was not something easily accepted. Okay, unlike the traditional formats of many documentaries, I'm thinking, for instance, of the September issue, which is focused on several days in a big editor's life, meaning Anna Wintour, or I'm thinking of The Last Emperor or L'Amour Fou, who are documentaries that are love tributes to great designers from their partners. This documentary is a little bit, actually is totally different. Is a testament of a unique and special relationship between a son and a mother. And so it's also indeed it's so clear your approach that you didn't even show Franca's working. We don't see Franca's unique way of work, which, could be another documentary in a way. So in doing so, were you influenced by other documentaries?
I think...
Yeah,
I mean, I watched My Architect a lot when I was making this film, and it was a film, that really portrays Joseph Kahn's life, but really rebuilds his life, kind of. And in this case, it wasn't that I had to reconstruct her life, because I knew what her life was. I had to dig a little bit deeper. So it definitely was a movie that, done from son to parent, that influenced me. Sarah Polley made a movie about her mom. I can't remember now the name, but I watched that too. So I kind of, got into all the filmography of kids making movies about their mother. But then, every film finds its own balance, and
of course,
and the way we interweaved her work with our private story really was just trial error, trying and kind of seeing how the weights of the film would come along. And, the longest thing I've done before this was a 4-minute music video. So, where you have music and someone doing something. So it's very different.
Franca had a unique, a very special relationship with the most renowned fashion photographers. Sometimes she was their talent scout, sometimes she was their muse. And which was the quote which describes at the very best this unique and fortunate talent that she had?
I think Baz Luhrmann says something at one point where he says, again, this film also made me understand who she really was, because of course I knew she was a big editor, of course I knew she was important, but often we don't understand what our parents are really doing and the entity of what they're doing. And so I think Baz Luhrmann at one point, he says, whoever does something that is truly their own transcends the box, right? And I think it's true. It's, when you write an incredible... Fitzgerald is not just a novelist, he's just, someone who put out something that will last forever. And her in her own, without comparing her to Fitzgerald, but when people ask me, if you were to have the success your mother had in film, how would you see it happening? I said I would have to be Stanley Kubrick, and I don't want to compare her to people like that, but at the same time, in her own field, that was her impact. She will always be that one, maybe less iconic than Diana Vreeland, because Diana Vreeland was in the States and was, of course, a bigger, it's a more prestigious thing in general, or the names of Anna Wintour, but she was really that outsider who did something, really unique and changed the game.
Franca was also an enthusiastic support of the lightness of being. She always said that, superficiality is what saved my life. So do you have any anecdotes about this lightness of being?
I mean, she always tried to find a way to laugh about everything. And, I remember even in the very last months, which are still, very hard for me to think of. But one day she was like, she had oxygen in her mouth and she was looking at me, and at one point she's like, fuck this, I was so unlucky, and I was about, for her to tell me, I love you, I know I'm gonna die, something really like, she kicked something and said, fuck this. And we laughed, both of us, and she really tried to keep the spirit really, really light until it wasn't even possible, which was really like 10 days before she died, which is the last time I saw her. So, I think it was a way to protect herself because, my mother always told me, I love you. She always hugged me and whatever. But it was never like a looking me in the eyes. And, there was always some kind of indirect feeling of love from her, but very deep. So I think love has many forms, and this was hers. And her way of protecting herself was of acting a little silly and superficial.
I was moved by the fact that many, many times you film your mom from the back. And if you have seen the poster of the movie, Franca is portrayed from the back. So why? I mean, she's so iconic, and so why from the back?
Well, for two reasons. One is because I really liked her hair, and she had amazing hair. And the reason that I actually understood later, you know, all the following her, it's always following and never leading. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because I always felt she always kind of like run, you know, away somehow, and you know, slip through my fingers. Not in a, you know, nostalgic, sad way, but she did, because she had shit to do. So I think really it was really a way for me. It's the way I looked at her always, and I kind of, you know, still do imagine her kind of like running around somewhere.
What is the legacy that she left us?
I answered to this question in an interview. I said balls. Which is courage. Mm-hmm. It's you know, daring to do. You know, she gave me a lot of courage. I've always wanted to do film, and all of a sudden I stumbled upon this film, which is about my life, and I never thought I really had the courage to become a filmmaker. And I was a photographer. I was doing very well. I didn't really need to become a filmmaker, but I love it, and I think she and this film really gave me the courage. They gave me, let's say, together the courage of becoming one, and now I'm preparing to hopefully make a movie next year.
Yes, tell us something about the future now that we already talked about the past. So tell us what's cooking with you and your career as a filmmaker. Francesco was a very well-known fashion photographer, actually portrait photographers for many magazines, Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, L'Uomo Vogue in Italy, and what else?
Rolling Stone.
Rolling Stones. So he photographed a lot of celebrities.
Mostly.
And with this movie, and also he decided to explore the video, the potential of the video camera, since he was a young kid, since he was, you know, 16, 17 when you went to Los Angeles. So Francesco did a lot of music video, and this is his first major work. So tell us about the future.
So I'm not making a documentary again, I think, for a while, because this was very painful. The process of documentary filmmaking is exhausting, and also it's not that a film isn't, it's just a reverse engineering. And I want to now dedicate myself to scripted material. So the next film is written by a guy named Stefano, who wrote Gomorrah, which is a film that you might have seen. And it's inspired by a novel by Joe Nesbo called Midnight Sun. And it's set in the Lofoten Islands, which are in the northwest of Norway. This guy who's a drug dealer and, you know, has to escape because he wants to stop, you know, being a bad guy. And kind of that's where the story starts.
So are you in pre-production?
We're in the writing stage. So, you know, it's called the development stage, which is the development. It differs from shooting a movie exactly as kissing a girl differs from marrying her. So I will say it's not that far off, but you know, it could always not be greenlit, or we could always not find the cast we want, or you know, a million things can happen. But again, with this legacy of someone who strived to always do what she wanted, I hope next year we'll be shooting it.
Thank you, Francesco. And on a personal note, I would say that what Franca taught me and the legacy she left to me, who I was an employee and I was very close to her, never considered myself a close friend, but a loyal employee. She taught me the strength of dreaming high, and push yourself to the boundaries. So wherever you are with us.
Grazie. I don't know if we have any questions from...
Yes, if you have any questions, please.
Okay, I have a technical question. Why did you decide to interview your mother in the car? Mm-hmm. Most of the interviews are like you and her in the car. And why did you decide to put sometimes black and white? Like, if there is a reason why you changed the color at one point, like.
Mm-hmm. I will give you two very straightforward answers.
Okay, thank you.
The first answer to why we did the interviews in the car is because she never had time, and the sound was pretty good in the car, so because of that. The black and white is because a lot of this film is really done on the go, and we all know black and white is a little bit more forgiving. And so in some shots, I couldn't, when I showed them to her in color, she was like, no. And when she got sick, which was before we actually finished the film, she said, if I die, I don't want to be remembered like this. So that's the answer.
Other questions?
Yeah. It's not really a question. I just wanted to say.
No.
You didn't make a movie about your mother. I think you made something timeless about your best friend.
Thank you. Yeah, that's how I want to see it. She really was my best friend. Thank you.
We have time for one more question, if there is a question. Otherwise, I think we are living in a beautiful place. And once again, I would like to thank Francesco Carrozzini for sharing with us this film.